Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the LendIt Fintech Weekly News Show. My name is Peter Renton, Chairman and Co-founder of LendIt Fintech. I'm coming at you from London today, where I've been all week, so it's actually pretty late for me, but happy to do the news show, my favorite half hour of the week. And I'm joined, as always, by Todd Anderson. How are you doing, Todd?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Doing great. And back again, our guest host today is Tim Lee from Alchemy. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing well. It's my fourth appearance. I feel like I'm on Letterman, coming back as a comedic relief.
Yes, I don't know if I'm quite raise the Letterman, right. Maybe one day.
close. But thank you. Good to see you guys.
Right. Good to have you back.
Yes, indeed. So let's get right into it. I think let's start with what I think is just a crazy story. And that is the fintech company Fast, which, I've been paying a little bit of attention to them, not a whole lot, to be honest. They just seemed like another fintech company that was raising money, doing well, but it all came crashing down. And really, I think is probably the most fastest and stunning collapse, true to their name. They collapsed fast. I read it a week ago, like on March 30th, I read a story talking about, they're going to have a down round. They're raising money. They're going to have a down round. It went from a down round to the next step was we're going to try and sell the company to the company no longer exists, all in 1 week. So crazy. What do you guys think?
Well,
you go first, Tim.
Right. I'm happy to tell you guys we're profitable and making revenue as a real business, hundreds of employees. My God, I mean, this is not the first time we heard this kind of story, although it's a really ugly one and fast one. There's a lot of folks out there that I'm sure the idea was sound. The execution might be there, but the marketplace didn't respond. These things happen on a daily basis. But this one took the crown for this year. $120 million vaporized in an instant. They were burning about $10 million a month. I don't know what you would do to burn $10 million a month.
Well, you're hiring other people.
Yeah, that's right. Man, I don't know, man. I mean,
AskBetter.com.
Right. Yeah, but these are all named tier 1 VCs out there.
Right.
Yeah. To me, that's
where are they putting money in?
Like the most surprising part. It's not like this venture was backed by a VC firm that maybe needed to take a risk to get their name out there.
No.
Like this is Tiger.
Yep.
I think there was a former Stripe executive that was an investor in them. Like these are some top tier names.
That's right.
Where this money's just evaporated.
Yeah. It's a fear of missing out.
Yep.
Index, exactly. That was a surprising one as well. It's crazy. I mean, I guess there's no other place to put money in anymore, right? Stock market is hyper ventilated, equity market as well, housing market, with the inflation, all that stuff. I guess the only place to squeeze money in is these high growth startups.
I think this was back in, they raised their Series A, I think, or B, I think it was B in 2021, early 2021, where things were a little nutty in early 2021, and they were able to raise money at I think it was like a $500 million valuation, and they were going out at $1 billion, and the VC market's turned. I mean, it has turned. It's not like it was 6 months ago. And
that's right.
They were raising money maybe in August or September. Maybe they would have been successful, but I think it was also crazy. $600,000 in revenue in 2021 for the whole year, and they weren't growing fast. $120 million to $600,000 in revenue. I think they probably generated, I'm guessing, right around $1 million in their entire history for all of that cash. So,
wow.
There's going to be business school studies on this. I mean, the guy obviously, and he's an Aussie working in America, so I have a bit of a soft spot there for people like that. But very charismatic, apparently, really tells a great story, and
he's got a checkered past, though.
Yes, he does.
He's got some. There's some things out there, and I don't know what's true. I know that there's stories out there that he had some business dealings in Australia, which he didn't live up to, and so, while he's a great storyteller, there might be more fluff behind it than substance.
Yeah. Due diligence, guys. Definitely need to do some due diligence. But let's chalk this one up as they just ran out of time. How about that? We'll move on.
Maybe they could have made it. Who knows? But boy,
Yep.
they really didn't.
Yep.
They weren't looking promising. That's for sure. So, anyway, let's move on. Lots more to talk about today. Jamie Dimon wrote his annual letter to shareholders. It's always a very closely watched publication, and we had Ron Shevlin did a deep dive into the shareholder letter that he wrote. Really covered, basically was talking about the $12 billion that JP Morgan's going to spend on tech in the next 12 months. And he just broke it down in this letter, talking about the infrastructure, maintenance, cloud, DeFi and blockchain, embedded banking, APIs, AI, all the different pieces. And Ron was quite positive about the fact that that Jamie Dimon was, some of these thoughts were not like, they were like, Jamie Dimon obviously is one of the smartest bankers on the planet, and he's being thoughtful about how he's money.
Yeah, this is I think it's great. I mean, I worked at JP Morgan Chase for many years. Right before, during, and after the downturn. When it comes to technology, I mean, JP Morgan Chase did a lot of stuff that's not right, but when it comes to technology spend, I will put them in the same categories as a Steve Jobs for banking. When we launched Chase.com, that's how old I guess I am now. Chase.com wasn't there. When we launched Chase.com, it was, I think we worked 16-hour days, nonstop in the consumer bank. We had a date to meet, and we got to get it done. There was no expense spared. We want to be the first out there with online banking, digital onboarding in 2005.
Wow.
Before Bank of America. Right. The second story I lived through was that remote deposit capture. You can take a picture with your phone and deposit checks.
Yep.
The technology wasn't really ready. I think this is all public knowledge anyway, but we had to get launched because we didn't want Bank of America to be the first one out there with this technology. So we busted our behind getting that technology pushed out there.
Interesting.
We were the first one using device identification, biometrics verification, voice recognition. All that stuff was just tech, and that really shone when we merged with Wells Fargo. Washington Mutual, Bear Stearns, right? In, I want to say, 9 months, we merged the two banks together. From the technology to operations to stores, everything was done in 9 months. Even the head of consumer bank had to call customers saying, I apologize, I want to send you $200. We couldn't merge the routing account number correctly because it was duplicated. Everybody had 100 people to call. So, we're talking about these guys burning $10 million a month. JP Morgan Chase is burning $1 billion a month. Right. $12 billion, right?
Yeah.
They got something to show for it, though.
Yeah, right. But I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah. I think that the most interesting part of the piece, and I think where banks also get critical, is like, oh, you have a $12 billion budget and half of it's spent on maintenance. But Ron makes an important part to that, where he says, I often wonder how many bank CFOs still don't grasp this concept that the development of new systems and applications requires ongoing maintenance, which results in additional cost. So yes, technically there's maintenance, but you have to maintain as you build. That's right. And so costs go up, but the result of that ultimately is speed, efficiency, and better customer experience. That's right. And so one stacks up in the back, but in the front, the customer is loving it, and the speed at which things are done is infinitely better than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
That's right. Exactly. The amount of technology runs those 20,000 ATMs at JP Morgan Chase's network is unbelievable. And they're just pouring money behind that thing. But we still walk to the ATM with the same expectation that $200 needs to spit out within 10, 15 seconds. You know what I'm saying? But we poured a lot of technology in it because that's what we wanted to do. The amount of tech, the amount of decision that's being made behind that ATM screen, it's unbelievable. I still have nightmares about that, but that's what we did. It was really cool because it was all tech at JP Morgan Chase. That's all I worked on, technology projects.
Right.
Yeah. So
anyway, we need to move on because we can talk about JP Morgan Chase for the next 20 minutes, but we're not. We have other stories, and we're actually going to cover quite a bit of regulatory stuff today because there's been a lot of news, particularly around the crypto front. Janet Yellen gave a speech on crypto today, I think it was, at American University in DC. Basically, she talked about CBDCs. She talked about the whole kind of regulatory approach to crypto, and it was generally pretty positive. I mean, she basically says that the financial system could benefit from this this type of technology, and she wants to do responsible innovation. And the CBDC is very much in her thoughts, talking about how they need to really support the dollar's role in international markets. Just do it thoughtfully. She said, we're not going to develop a CBDC in months. It's going to take years because it needs to be done well. And really interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It has to be done because all of our adversaries, I bring this up all the time, are doing it already. And we don't want to be the Android versus iOS because essentially you're creating an operating system to control your currency. We don't want to be the one out there that's incompatible with everybody else's CBDC. But at the end of the day, I think it's all tax control, privacy issues that's going to come up. In America, I think that this privacy thing is going to come up. People don't want the government to know what they're spending their $20, $30 buying lunch here and there. But places like China, you got to use it. We need to see every dollar is being transacted by their citizens, right? They want to track everything. We do as well to a certain extent. But replacing cash with currency, with a digital currency, that's going to take 10 years. We're always about 10 years behind the UK. For all these banking technology, always.
I mean, at least the very least, we're now seeing some of the push, by the government to start getting on that path of where digital money and digital dollar, CBDC, whatever you want to end up calling it, but it makes me more positive that the inevitability of fintech, Web3, banking, like we're inevitably getting there. It's a matter of when and how safely it can be done, but there's no more if.
Yeah. Yep. Just like chase.com, right? We can't live without it now, but it didn't exist 15 years ago. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, staying on the regulatory front, I want to talk about the SEC Chairman Gary Gensler. He said in a virtual speech this week that his agency, the SEC, is going to this is not a definitive statement. He's basically said their plan to basically register and regulate, crypto exchanges, and like they do other exchanges. Yeah. And they're going to partner with the CFTC, and it sounds like the SEC is sort of probably been the one that's been most out there with commentary about their plans, and it seems like they're slowly crystallizing. It seems anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many hacks, too many stolen coins, too many of these cyber attacks. The angles of investor protection is the right angle. If SEC does anything, I think everybody will say yes. Investors need to be protected, and only then would retail investors like you and I could, put in $10,000, $20,000 and test out the market, right? I mean, every other day, $600 million worth of cryptocurrency gone missing.
Well, not every other day.
Where do they go?
Every other day there's a hack. Yes.
There's a hack, right? There's a hack. And how does it even happen? You kind of guess. So yeah, I mean, like what Todd said, I mean, I'm glad that is actually being verbalized from SEC. And I think they're working with the commodities trading regulatory regime as well to regulate these platforms. So at least we need to know, privacy aside, if these are going to be exchanges regulated like any other exchanges, there needs to be transparency and protection for investors.
Yep. I think that's what they're working towards.
Nothing much to add there. You guys pretty much covered it.
He also made comments about criminal transactions. He also want to make sure that these are not a playground for nefarious actors moving money back and forth.
Right.
I guess the only thing that does worry me is that, they have made stuff like, I forget what proposal was in that everyone's going to have to become a broker dealer if, I forget one of there are some out that kind of make some way the market works today untenable. And so there's always that risk of going slightly too far. I think in most cases they're looking to be protective, but I think the SEC is the one that potentially runs the risk of going overboard. And so I think, we want to be careful there. But overall, I think it hasn't been that bad what they've been talking about.
One of the requirements that every email, every transmission, all that stuff needs to be saved if you're a broker-dealer regulated entity as SEC. Can you imagine some of these brokerages having to save every single one of their emails? So they can turn it to SEC for examination? Yeah, yes, you're right. A lot of people will go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to move across the pond here, where I'm in London this week, and basically the city minister, the economic secretary, they also call him. He's probably the closest equivalent would be the chair of the House Financial Services Committee. It's not actually a perfect analogy, but it's the closest we would have in the US. John Glenn is his name. I've heard him speak a couple of times before. He really does know technology fairly well, particularly for a government minister. But basically, I went into the room thinking, I'll stay for a few minutes and I'll probably leave. It's just they're never saying it. Interesting. And oh my goodness, he basically 2 minutes into his speech, he said the UK want to be leaders of the world when it comes to crypto. They were going all in, very enthusiastic. He was, the government really. They want, and it was also fairly humble. He says, we need to learn. We know we don't know all the answers. We need to learn, but we're going to act quickly. Things are going to move fast, and we are trying to provide. There'll be a regulatory framework. It's not going to be as onerous as what you might have expected, and we are going to try and attract crypto companies from all across the world to actually come and base themselves in the UK. So. Really interesting. And then with that, it was a little gimmicky, I thought, at the end, but they said the Royal Mint is going to issue an NFT. I think that was probably just to get headlines more than anything, and it worked. Everyone's talking about the NFT that they're going to launch, which is just, I think, the most meaningless. Well, didn't have much meaning compared to the rest of what he talked about.
I wonder, the crypto space is probably the one area where you need more international cooperation than you probably ever had before, at least financially, in the financial markets.
Mm-hmm.
And so stuff like this is good. I wonder when does there come a point where the US, the UK, and obviously more freer societies eventually come up with more of a broad-based international framework? I don't know. It feels like this is the one time where that is needed more than in past, decades and past, I guess, iterations of what the financial system is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll get it, but
someone's got to jump in first.
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
And there's been. I know that. Other like Singapore is doing some things that are interesting. We've got other countries, other smaller countries are doing. Obviously, we've got China that have taken the opposite route and said we are going to ban crypto and we're going to do it, control it ourselves. But I feel like UK. I mean, I think they've got a history of being pretty open to fintech, and there's been some rumblings in the last year or two that they're becoming more closed, but it feels like this is. I left, and there was a talk at the conference that I was at, and everyone talked about how, this is sort of a, put the Union Jack in the sand, and the UK is going to take the lead here.
Yeah. I mean, from economic development perspective, we've heard the same speech when all three of us was in Hong Kong and Shenzhen, right? We're going to be the center of the universe for this and that, this, which is great. But for the past couple of months, I feel like there's a backdrop of what's happening with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and how the international community moved Web 1.0 stuff like a SWIFT system to cut off certain players from this entire financial operating system, which has devastated their economy, right? So I think even some of the freer societies are thinking, holy crap, if I guess don't listen, right, to certain people on the SWIFT system, I might be quarantined from the rest of society. And I've coined these terms that some of these countries are probably thinking about, what can I do, or what can our friends do to create these sanction-proof operating systems and rails? And my fear is that China and Russia might create one of their own. The EU, centered around UK, will create their own. Okay, great. You don't want to trade in dollars? No problem. We're going to trade our own coins to move oils back and forth. Your sanction doesn't apply here. So that's what I'm fearing now, that these parts of the world are creating their own ecosystem rails and operating systems to operate, so they can, because they see how powerful SWIFT could be.
It goes back to what Todd is saying.
Good thing. Yeah, might be a scary thing for a lot of people as well.
Right.
Sovereign nations.
We need there needs to be some sort of international standard. But anyway, I want to get going to a few more stories here. We're running out of time. There was a really, really great piece in the FT this week. It actually talked about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF they call him. He's 30 years old, a multi-billionaire, and he was at an industry conference with an industry event with A-Rod, the former baseball player, and A-Rod was very impressed with how smart SBF, and I've heard SBF speak a few times, and he's extraordinarily smart. You can tell that. But what he's basically saying, from the gist of this story, which was really interesting, was that FTX wants US futures markets to basically use its technology. Because right now, futures markets are open, I think, I don't know how many hours a day, like 6 hours a day or something. And then he wants to bring 24/7 trading, and then automated risk management, which right now, is just, when I was reading this article, I didn't realize how backwards some of our commodities markets are. But SBF realizes it and wants to basically use his technology to change it.
And where the incentives are really aligned, and you can see it's not aligned like the way it should be. It's aligned with middlemen and those that set prices and can manipulate prices. It's the world in which SBF is describing is you collateralize, and then if there's not enough, the position automatically liquidates, and so it protects the system. Right now, the incentive is basically none of that, and the middleman is hoping to get payment, but there's all this risk building up into the system. The way that FTX could potentially solve the problem is that it automates a lot of this, where the risk never builds up. And so, when you start thinking about it in the practical way that SBF had described it, A, it makes a lot of sense, but B, it puts a lot of potential people and lobbyists and those that hold power out of position. And so you have now this dynamic of technically what could be possible, but the realities of where does the industry go when the power is in that intermediary?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. The only article I read this whole week about him is that he's going to give all his money away.
Yeah.
Right. But this is no different than, before Chase.com, bank only open from 8 to 5. That's
Right.
it. You can't do anything else after that. And there's a bunch of analogies we can make, but this is he's going to put a lot of people out of their jobs, and you wonder why those jobs aren't really necessary or not.
Yeah, they're
right? Between those down hours, a lot of monies are being made, and we have no clue how they're making those money. So transparency. Again,
it goes to like some of the trading stuff. Like it should not take 2 days to settle. It's
but
like we have the technology to do this
because there's plenty of technology to play that dark pool, and he wants to make it transparent. Good for him. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get to 2 more stories here. Overdrafts. Love overdraft fees. Actually, I love the elimination of overdraft fees. Which is what we had. There was several state attorneys general sent letters to JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and US Bank, basically saying, okay, you guys have said you're going to take action on overdraft fees, but we think you should eliminate them completely, which is what Citi has said they're going to do. And these banks have all made some movements, but only Bank of America has actually reduced the fees from $35 to $10. But it's just. I mean, I don't know if anything's going to come of this, but it's interesting that there's just becoming more and more pressure. The overdraft fee thing has got a lot of momentum still, and I think these banks are going to find it hard to charge much longer.
Are the regulators or the attorneys general here? They don't want you to overdraft at all. Like, I think to me, I think there is a product there.
Yeah, there's a product there. Like Dave and Tom have that.
I also don't think the new Chase one is that bad. It gives you $50 of room.
Right.
If you overdraft, there's no fee at $50. Now, if you hit $51, you get fees, and maybe those fees are still too high. I agree, but there still should be flexibility in the way that you should be allowed to overdraft.
Yeah, overdraft is good, but how I'm not going to name the bank now, but we design algorithms to trip up people to do more overdrafts. For example, if your limit is $50 and you have a $50 transaction, a bunch of bubblegum transactions, we will do the $50 first to set you up to zero, and then each one of those bubblegums will collect $25, as opposed to do the bubblegums first, and then the $50 tips off your overdraft, and you only get charged once. Those are the things that should go away.
CFPB is going to stop that.
Dodd-Frank made that go. You got to process everything in the chronological order. You got to dive a little bit deeper. But when I worked at the bank, there were millions of people that relied on that. Otherwise, their mortgage payment is going to bounce. That's a whole other crazy consequences that we're not prepared to answer.
Yeah, that's why I think there's going to be a standard product. I think it's going to be like the Dave and Chime products. I mean, Chase have got it to $50, but I think there should be fees if you want to overdraw your account $100. But pay a couple of dollars fees, not $35. Yeah. It's a huge profit margin. Profit pool.
But I guess don't charge overdraft over and over again in that one sitting, right?
Are the banks worried that they're just going to continue to overdraft and like? I don't know many people that want to keep overdrafting.
No.
So to me, it's like some of the stuff they do is really backwards.
It's just punitive, and that's what they're trying to. That CFPB is going to stop the punitive overdrafts. It seems like. Anyway, last story. Block used to be called Square. Had a little bit of a hiccup, it seems, or a breach, shall we say. A former employee accessed a report after they actually were terminated. This happened in December, and they were able to access a report that had customer information, not personally identifying information, no usernames, no passwords, but they had full name, brokerage account numbers, and some accounts had addresses. Not a good look for Block. Doesn't seem like it's a huge deal, but again, the people will think, well, they're not really, are they ready for prime time?
That's a big report. 8.2 million people.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of report that is, right? That needs to be a summarized report. Anyways, yeah, it's just, I mean, again, access to control. And some of these things are, I can imagine what happened is that they're probably using some kind of a third-party reporting tool like Domo or BI or something like that. They determine the employees a block, but they forgot to turn off the passwords and usernames over there.
Yeah,
some third-party reporting. That's probably what happened, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the right thing to do. It won't happen again. I'm sure of that. But it's what can you say, right? At least it's not a hack. It's there's no PIIs involved.
Yeah,
Exposure,
well,
right?
carelessness or process was a little off.
Yeah.
Okay, that is all we have time for. Thank you very much for watching or listening, everybody. We'll be back same time next week. Before I go, though, just a reminder, LendIt Fintech USA, May 25th and 26th. You have to be there. LendIt.com. Go there now and buy your ticket if you haven't got one already. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Peter. See ya.